Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. Who am I? I am your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we gather together to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And I'm flying solo today, ladies and gentlemen. Normally on Mondays, I'm joined by Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. He got a hold of me late last night. He's trying to put he's working on this little movie he's been working on for a couple of years called Tango Shalom. It's a Jewish musical dance comedy, which it sounds every bit as amazing as the title suggests. Anyway, so he's just busy putting some final touches on that. So he emailed me last night. He couldn't be in here today. So it's just you and me in a romantically uncomfortable position to sit around here and talk about some of our favorite things going on. I had a great weekend. Oh my God, I had a great weekend. I hope you guys did too, but it was highlighted last night. My Dungeons and Dragons group gets together on Sunday nights. We played that. We actually wrapped up an adventure we were playing pretty quick, so then we played poker into the night. I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, which you'll probably be able to tell as the show goes on. But listen, guys, without getting into all that stuff, let's get in and start talking about some movie stuff. We, of course, will have some main topics to get here to today. But before we get to our main topics, let's go off the top with this. Now, look, you don't have to know a lot about the movie business, and you don't need to know a lot about the box office, and you don't need to know a lot about the industry to know that Disney is having a pretty good year. I don't know if you've heard. Like between, what was it? Captain Marvel, surprising a lot of people, joining the $1 billion club. Avengers Endgame, might still become the biggest box office film of all time. And on top of other things, and not to mention a lot of other stuff is still coming. Disney right now, to put this into perspective, has made, according to reports, more than double at the box office this year than its second closest competitor. Wrap your head around that. Disney so far, like we all knew that Disney's 2019 was going to be a ridiculous year. We all knew this. But as of right now, Disney's 2019 box office has Disney at more than double the number of what their next closest competitor is. That's mind-boggling. Of course we all assumed they would be out in the lead and out in front of everybody else, but those types of numbers are insane. Now, coming to us from our friends over at Cinema Blend, this is what it says. Disney official domestic box office take through June 16th is $1.732 billion. Now, this is domestic, of course. The number 2 studio is Warner Brothers, which sits at $803 million through the same period. Those numbers don't even include the last week's worth of business, which includes Toy Story 4, and Warner Brothers' highest performing film right now is Godzilla King of the Monsters, which has been out for a month, and its ratio is only going to increase. Now, on top of all this stuff, the thing that makes this even more ridiculous is the fact that, Disney, they haven't even shown a lot of their cards yet. That number still doesn't reflect the numbers for Toy Story 4, which is obviously going to be massive. We got Frozen 2 coming, which is going to be massive. We've got The Lion King coming, which I believe is going to be the number 2 box office film of the year, just behind Endgame. Then they've got that little film coming in December from this little franchise you may have heard of called Star Wars Episode 9. That's coming in December. And on top of all that, if that wasn't enough, they've got Maleficent 2, Mistress of Evil coming, which is not going to be a $900 million film, but it's just going to add to this ridiculous total. Again, we all knew going into 2019 that it was going to be a stupidly good year for Disney. But as of right now, when a lot of their big guns still haven't come, sitting at more than double the closest competitor is pretty impressive. What do you guys think? Do you think this huge gap between Disney and the next closest competitor is really more of a reflection and a commentary on just how good of a year Disney's having? Do you think it's maybe more of a reflection of commentary on how maybe a little bit of a subpar year other studios having? Do you think it's a little bit of a combination of the two? Either jump in Super Chat and leave me your thoughts, or jump down to the comments section and let me know what you think. All right, with that down and out of the way, let's move on to our main topics today. How do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. See, you guys come up with our main topics by going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you get there, fill out the form with your topic or question, hit submit, and maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get on to the first main question today. And the first main topic today comes to us from Randy V, who writes, okay, what's going on? I just read multiple reports that Ezra, you probably meant Ezra Miller's Flash movie is still on and will film after he's done shooting Fantastic Beasts 3. I thought this thing was dead a while ago since WB preferred the original script over Miller and Grant Morrison's version. What's going on? Is Flash still on after all? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Randy. And for those of you who don't know what Randy is talking about, a little while ago, we've known for a while that the Flash movie kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, and pretty soon an option for Ezra Miller was going to run out. And then this crazy story came out that was true. A crazy story came out that Ezra Miller wasn't happy with the direction that the directors were going to take the Flash movie in and their script, which is going to go a little bit more lighthearted, which has worked great for Warner Brothers so far. And also fits perfectly with the Flash character. But he wanted to go more serious and stuff like that. I don't know all the details. I don't think anybody does of exactly what Ezra Miller wanted to do or what he was trying to do. But Warner Brothers allowed him and Grant Morrison to take a crack at writing their own version of the script, which number one was a terrible, terrible decision. That was a terrible decision. You're throwing your directors under the bus. The directors have already said the movie they want to make, and now you're putting more power in the actor's hand? Anyway, I thought that was really questionable to start with. Now, shortly after that, reports came out, like some of the major trades reported that Warner Brothers preferred the original script over what Ezra Miller had done. Nothing came out after that, and a lot of people assumed that Ezra's days as the Flash were probably over. Now, fast forward to yesterday. And all of a sudden, as of yesterday, a bunch of movie websites are running the headlines that the Flash movie will shoot after Ezra Miller is done shooting Fantastic Beasts 3. And I saw that, and I was just like you. I was like, wait a minute, what? I thought this thing was I thought this was done. Everything pointed towards this being done. What are they talking about? So basically, I look and a whole bunch of headlines say they're going to start shooting Flash after Fantastic Beasts 3. They're going to start shooting Flash. Well, you know one of the things I always tell you guys, find out what the source is. Like all these places are running the headlines, but where are they getting that information from? And here's what happened. All of them were getting their information from the same place. Now that place was Variety. Well, Variety is a completely reliable source, right? Aren't they? For the most part, yes, absolutely. But here's the thing. While they got that information from Variety, it wasn't from a story in Variety. It wasn't from a headline in Variety. It wasn't from an exclusive or a breaking piece of news from Variety. Here's where they got it from, okay? On Variety's site, they do this clickbaity thing like a lot of sites do, nothing wrong with it, where it's like, see our top 20 this, and they create a slideshow, and then you always got to click next, because every time you click next, a new ad loads, and they make more money. Anyway, it was this little slideshow thing that they had put together for a little presentation they called the Power of Pride 2019. All right? So it was just a simple little slideshow. Power of Pride 2019. That's all it was. And with every graphic of each individual they had a little written blurb, right? Well, this was the little written blurb beside the slide of Ezra Miller. Miller, who plays the ultra-swift superhero The Flash, will get his DC Universe standalone film as soon as he wraps up his work on the Harry Potter spin-off series Fantastic Beasts. The queer and gender-fluid star is somehow even more in demand on the red carpet than in the casting studio sessions. Okay, that's what it was. This descriptor placed on the side of an image in a top list carousel is where everybody got this information and are running their headlines that Ezra Miller's Flash is going to shoot after Fantastic Beasts. And you know what? It's not ridiculous for them to do that. It is coming from Variety. It's not like it's coming from, Breaking Cosmic Insider Marvel MCU DCEU.net. It's not like it's coming from there. It's coming from Variety. So you know what? Cut everybody some slack on this. However, I do want to point this out. As reliable as the main trades are, like a Variety, like a Hollywood Reporter, like The Wrap, whatever, as usually reliable as those can be, we have seen examples several times where, like, a minor detail thrown in on line 6 of paragraph 9, where some little background factoid was put in there that seemingly looks like a huge piece of news, and you're wondering, wait a minute, why isn't that a headline? Well, we've seen several times from all the major trades, little piece of information kind of stuffed in or slid in there somewhere as a piece of background that totally didn't turn out to be real. All it simply was some copy person or somebody writing the article with some outdated background information that they just kind of threw in. I would suggest this. This is where my thinking is right now. If it was a real breaking story from Variety that Ezra Miller, they've got their whole Flash situation straightened out, they are setting up a shoot date for Flash, blah, blah, that's a headline story. I mean, isn't that? Isn't it? Isn't Ezra Miller and Warner Brothers DC get everything straightened out? Ezra's still on in The Flash, and they're even scheduling to shoot The Flash once Fantastic Beasts 3 is completed. In light of everything else that's gone on in the last little while, isn't that headline news? But where is it coming from? It's coming from somebody who put together a list for their Power of Pride list 2019 for their little image carousel. And they're probably, what I'm operating on the assumption of here is that they're probably just working on some outdated information. They just slapped in the description, blah, 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 blah. Now, look, let me say this too. I don't believe for a second that it is impossible that this could be actual fact. It's not impossible. You know, for the longest time, Ezra Miller has been our Flash. For the longest time, Ezra Miller and Warner Brothers are trying to get their Flash thing together. Is it outside of the realm of possibility that this could actually be true? Of course not. It's not outside of the realm of possibility. It absolutely is a possibility. However, again, for me, when I'm looking at this situation, the way it's kind of set up, for me, it seems pretty clear. This was just written as some outdated background information by somebody who's not one of their big, major entertainment beat cover people. And it just kind of got thrown in there. And sometimes I get hard on myself and other movie sites that, headlines get run on very questionable information. But you could, even though it's from a little carousel, again, it is from Variety, so I get it. I get it. But right now, while I still acknowledge that I think it is a possibility this thing could be real, and this thing could be true, I got a feeling this isn't real. I do not believe that this information slapped just kind of casually in a carousel descriptor of a video or of an image. I don't think that's what's really happening. Now, again, I have not heard anything from Warner Brothers to confirm or deny this thing that's going around. But again, to me, it just seems like if this was really a story, we wouldn't have found it hidden on Variety, tucked away in a little descriptor beside an image on a random list. It would have been a headline story, so I personally don't think this is actually real. But again, let's not say it's completely impossible. What do you guys think? Do you think this is reliable information? Do you think that this is going to be done and they're actually going to shoot the Flash movie with Ezra Miller after they're done shooting Fantastic Beasts? Personally, I really liked Ezra Miller as the Flash. I'm not really happy with all the drama that's been going on since about demanding to write his own. I'm not a fan of that at all. But I love him as Flash. I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people don't, and that's fair. But I like Ezra Miller as the Flash. Do you think it's happening? Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today is sent in to us from Gregory Voigt, who writes, so Toy Story 4 opened with an estimated $118 million this weekend, which is fantastic, but it is below Disney's $140 million expectations. Fandango reported that it was outpacing Incredibles 2, which opened to $180 million in pre-sales. I know that more people use Fandango to order tickets in advance today than at this point last year, but this number feels way lower than it should be. Did the number of pre-sale ticket buyers really jump that much in the last year? All right, thanks for sending that in, Gregory. And a couple of issues there. The first of all we, of course, got to talk about is that of course, Toy Story 4 comes in number one at the box office. Not only did Toy Story 4 come in at number one at the box office, it is the biggest opening for a Toy Story film ever. Now, Toy Story 3, which joined the $1 billion club, opened to $110 million on its opening weekend. Toy Story 4 outpaces that with $118 million. Does that mean it'll get to $1 billion? Not necessarily, but we'll get to that in a second. The thing that's raising a lot of people's eyebrows over this is the fact that, early tracking numbers from Disney themselves had them expecting about $20 million more. So probably about 17% more. They were kind of expecting in the $140 million range for the opening weekend on this. Patted on top of that, a lot of these reports about advanced ticket sales for Toy Story, even outpacing some of the biggest animated films like in Incredibles 2 and what have you. So what happened? Well, personally, I think there's a couple of things to keep in mind here. Item number one is this, is that yes, exponentially more and more people faster than ever are now starting to use online advanced ticket sales. And I would say it's not just growing at a certain pace, it's growing exponentially. I feel like every time I go to the AMC Burbank 16, which is one of the busiest movie theaters in the world, every time I go, week after week, that line at the box office is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. It's not that fewer people are going to the AMC Burbank 16, it's that more and more people are wising up and buying their tickets in advance. Even more than last year. So I think that has a little bit of something to contribute to it. Number two is this. As a family film, while I do believe there is a growing trend in the movie-going habits of the average fan to go more and more front-end heavy, go opening weekend, go within the first 3 or 4 days. There is that trend. That is happening in the film-going business. However, I also believe that movies like a Toy Story, these family films, they tend to lend themselves to not have as much of a rush on it as, say, a Justice League or an Avengers or a Star Wars or a Godzilla or whatever, right? I think for the most part, family films, particularly animated family films, lend themselves a little bit more that there's not quite the same rush to get out opening weekend as other films do. So I think that comes into play here as well. I still think, though, that the focus here needs to be on the fact, not so much that it didn't hit the expected number that Disney wanted, which was 140 million. I pegged it at 145. So I was off by like 18 million. But here's the key thing, or like 28 million. Here's the key thing. The key thing, though, that I think everybody should be focused on is the fact that it is still the largest opening in the history of the franchise. And the fact that the last film opened to less and it still joined the $1 billion club. So I don't think there's anything to worry about. The other thing here, too, is I think Disney has become a little bit of a victim of their own success. Any other studio puts out another animated film like this, and it hits nearly 120 million on its opening weekend, fireworks are going off. Fireworks are going off across the sky. Everybody's partying, everybody's popping bottles, everybody's celebrating, dancing in the streets. Yay. But this is Disney. We've now become accustomed to a Disney film, be it a Lucasfilm, a Marvel film, a Pixar film. We've become accustomed to a Disney movie opening, and it's some ridiculous number. And look, 118 million is still a ridiculous number for the opening of an animated film. But with all the success that Disney has had, I think it's adjusted our expectations for what we expect we should see from the opening of a film like this. So I don't know. So bottom line here for me, Gregory, is that there's no one, smoking gun here. There's no one magic bullet here. It's not one thing, whether it's the increased number of people who buy tickets in advance, or whether it's, I think people have a little bit more patience for how quickly they go to see an animated film, or whether it has to do with the expectations that come along with a Disney film at this point. I think it's a number of these things all kind of crammed into one. The most important thing here, of course, is that Toy Story 4 is a brilliant movie. It's fabulous. I mean, I've never seen a film address like heavier, more existential questions. Like the basic premise of this movie, without giving anything away, is this. It asks the question of several characters in the movie. Who are you when the thing that you've wrapped your whole identity up in is suddenly taken away? When there's a thing that you have wrapped all of your identity up into, and that thing is then taken away, what's left? Who are you after that? And it poses that question in several different ways to several different characters throughout the film. And it just makes it one of the most beautiful, thought-provoking, moving movies I've seen in a while. It's brilliant. And it made $118 million opening weekend. Not as big as even Disney was expecting, but huge nonetheless, and still more than the last film that still went on to make $1 billion. Will Toy Story 4 go on to make $1 billion? I'm not sure. But John, you just said that the last film opened less and it made $1 billion. Why did you say you're not sure if Toy Story 4 will open and hit, that open bigger can hit $1 billion? Well, because of this. There is still that trend that more people see front end loaded and movies don't have the legs that they used to. And the last time a Toy Story movie came out was 8 years ago? 7, 8 years ago? The patterns of movie going has changed. So I'm not sure it's going to hit $1 billion. It's going to be a massive, huge hit. It already is a big, huge hit. But I'm not so sure it's going to hit $1 billion at that point. Anyway, what do you guys think about all that? Do you think 118 is a great result? Do you think $118 million opening weekend is a disappointing result? And do you ultimately think a Toy Story 4 can still get up there like Toy Story 3 and cross that $1 billion mark? Or maybe it's still going to be a big hit, but it's not. The $1 billion club isn't in the cards. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3. And our third main topic today comes to us from Sean Bailey, who writes, after a month of release, Godzilla King of the Monsters finally crawled past 2 times its budget, which is not enough, ladies and gentlemen. I can't help thinking this particular movie was hamstrung by its marketing campaign. It seems like excitement and awareness for the movie was highest almost a year ago when the first excellent trailer came out. Each subsequent trailer had to work harder and show more of the money shots to maintain that interest, to the point that the epic monster clashes, no longer seemed all that epic. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Sean. And to put this into perspective for what Sean's talking about, let me bring up the Godzilla numbers here. Godzilla King of the Monsters. Okay, so as of right now for Godzilla King of the Monsters, the movie is currently sitting at $102 million domestically, $349 million worldwide. Now, unfortunately, that's not enough. The movie had a $170 million budget. The reports are saying the marketing budget creeped around $100 million. And then when you take off a third of the money of that $349 million that the movie theaters keeps, you're still looking at Godzilla still being a money loser at this point. It's losing money. It's not good enough. So what was it? What was the problem? Well, I think the question sent in raises a very, very good point. Because you remember Godzilla, and this is why I think a lot of us were surprised when Godzilla only opened to $47 million. The lowest opening weekend out of the 3 big monster movies so far. The first Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, and now Godzilla King of the Monsters. It opens to the lowest opening out of all 3. And I think the reason a lot of us were so surprised by that was because last year at Comic-Con, when they did their presentation and they debuted the first trailer for Godzilla, everybody was ludicrously excited about it. Everybody was incredibly excited about it. There was such a huge pop that came out of Comic-Con for that trailer and that panel that they had, and everybody was excited and everybody was talking about Godzilla King of the Monsters. The buzz was palatable. You could feel it in the air. It was nuts. However, that was a year ago. That was a year ago that happened. And I believe, there's something I've been talking about for the last couple of years, which is I really believe that Hollywood studios start their marketing campaigns, not all the time, but for the most part, Hollywood studios start their marketing campaigns and their push and release their first trailers far too early. Far too early. Because what happens? Buzz has a shelf life. Buzz is not eternal, unless you're talking about Buzz Lightyear. Here's forever. But buzz, excitement, movie buzz, has an expiration date. It's not a preservable. It doesn't just last forever. You create buzz a year ago, guess what? Way to go, but that buzz eventually dies out. And so what do? You put out trailer after trailer after trailer to try to maintain that momentum, to try to maintain that buzz until the thing comes out, until finally you get to a point where it's 3 months or 2 months before the movie comes out. You've already put out several big significant spots over the course of a year, and now people are just starting to get over it. I propose this, and let me admit right up front, there is no scientific method here to prove my theory, okay? I'll just admit that up front. There is no scientific method here to prove my theory, but it is my theory nonetheless, and I'll tell you this. Had Godzilla, King of the Monsters, opened in September of last year, 3 or 4 months, you're 2 or 3 or 4 months out, and somewhere in that window, 2, 3, 4 months outside of when it debuted, its big push at Comic-Con and all that kind of stuff, when the buzz was at its highest, the excitement was at its apex, all that kind of stuff, this movie would have opened to more than $47 million. Again, I confess, I can't prove that. So it's a theory. It's a theory. But it's a theory I really believe in. If this movie had released 2, 3, 4 months after that Comic-Con panel, you're seeing an opening weekend bigger than $47 million. You could just feel it. You could feel it in all the chats. You could feel it on the different movie shows. You could feel it on Twitter. You could feel it on Instagram. You could feel it on the streets of San Diego. You could feel it. There was a heightened sense of excitement for this movie, but that excitement has a shelf life. And as the months wore on and wore on and wore on and wore on, all that work you did, all that big pop you got, bringing out all your stars and playing the trailer for the first time, it's gone months before your movie ever hits the screen. Months before your movie ever hits the screen. And now you're just trying to play, resuscitation. You're just trying to keep that buzz alive, put out something else. And pretty soon we've had a whole bunch of trailers just, okay, another shot of the big giant monster shooting something out of the sky. Now, I like the trailers. Don't misinterpret me. I liked all the trailers for Godzilla. I loved them all. But even I have to confess that if I look back at it, my excitement for this movie was probably never bigger than it was a year ago. It was probably never bigger. And so what ultimately did Warner Brothers get for all that buzz and that pop that they got from Comic-Con last year for a movie that was still a year away? Ultimately, what did they get out of it? Pretty much 2 squirts of piss is what they got. And it just kind of dissipated and dissipated. It's like, really, that movie's not out yet? It still hasn't come out yet? And then even I was like, oh yeah, wait, that movie's opening next week? I mean, there's a little bit of that. Now, am I saying, don't misinterpret me here. Am I saying that is the reason why Godzilla is in a money-losing position right now? Am I saying this is the reason that Godzilla only opened to $47 million? Am I saying this is the reason that Godzilla had the lowest box office performance, particularly in its opening, than any of the other giant monster movies that they had in their franchise already? Am I saying it's the exclusive reason? Absolutely not. No, I'm not. But I also believe it is a factor that needs to be taken into consideration. And why I believe studios need to start shortening their marketing windows. I'm not saying don't put out your first trailer until it's 6 weeks before release. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying this whole thing about putting big buzz, big presentation, big first trailer, like a year, 11 months before your movie comes out. It's just not an effective and efficient use of your marketing strategy, I don't think. But I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong about that. What do you guys think about that? What do you think about my theory that had this movie opened like last year, closer to when the initial buzz was out there, that I think this movie would have done better? Maybe you think I'm crazy. Maybe you think it would have done worse, and you have some really solid reasons for it. I want to hear what you guys have to think about that. Jump down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down and out of the way, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets sent in to us from Bob Smith, who writes, looking at Captain Marvel's success and how everyone was talking about Black Widow after Endgame, do you think the Black Widow standalone movie can make $1 billion at the box office? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Bob. And yeah, one of the next big MCU movies coming up, of course, we got Spider-Man Far From Home coming from Sony here, but then we got Black Widow. And Black Widow is coming. Look, it's an MCU movie. Is Black Widow going to be a success? The answer to that question is duh. Of course it's going to be successful. It's going to make Marvel a lot of money. There are going to be a lot of people that want to go see it. And again, sometimes people ask me, John, why do you care so much about box office? Because of what box office tells us. Box office tells us what are us as the fans really interested in seeing? What in the marketing of these movies is attracting us to go out and see these movies? See, box office isn't just about money. Box office tells us a lot of things about us as fans and what we as fans, number one, want, and number two, what we're responding to when it comes to marketing, and number three, what we're responding to when it comes to subject matter. Box office tells us tons of really fascinating stuff. It's not just about the money. So if you hear me talk about box office a lot, it's not just because I'm fixated on how much money are these rich people making. No, because it's information that tells us about ourselves as moviegoers. So as we're looking at a movie like Black Widow, could a Black Widow have that much support amongst average fans, have that much connection with what it is we want and what it is we're looking for and what's going to appeal to us, that Black Widow movie is a movie that could make $1 billion? Could it? I'm going to say this first off. There is a big, big factor in whether or not a Black Widow movie can make $1 billion that we simply cannot evaluate yet. And that is the quality of the movie. Is the movie any good? Is the movie great? Is the movie disappointing? Is the movie one of the best comic book movies of all time? Is it one of the worst comic book movies of all time? I mean, this is a major factor in whether or not a Black Widow movie can get to $1 billion. That's probably the biggest factor out of all of them, and we simply have no way to ascertain that. Marvel's pretty much earned the benefit of the doubt at this point. However, we can't say for certain that this movie is going to be any good, or if it's going to be the worst, or if it's going to be the best. We just don't know. Understanding that we just don't know, I'm going to tell you this right now. Black Widow won't make $1 billion, and I'm going to tell you why. Now, before I tell you why, let me preface what I'm saying by saying that it is absolutely possible that it could make $1 billion. Of course it's possible. Again, I just admitted that the biggest factor of the quality of the movie, we don't even know about that yet. But should this movie not make $1 billion, I'm going to tell you why it won't. Now, also understand that 99% of the time when most of us say that a movie won't make $1 billion, we're right. But I'm also the guy, just to remind you all, I didn't think Aquaman would hit $1 billion, and it did. Now, almost every other movie I say won't hit $1 billion doesn't, and almost every other movie that you say won't hit $1 billion doesn't. But, I mean, keep in mind, most people, including me, very loudly, didn't think Aquaman would make $1 billion. Boom, Aquaman made $1 billion. So there you go. So keep that in mind. But I do not think that's what's in store for Black Widow, and I'm going to tell you why. And the main reason it won't, I'll get to in a second. There's a couple of smaller reasons. Number one, there's really nothing exceptional about the Black Widow character. Look, I've said for a long time that I am not I've been saying this ever since, the 4-year consideration days, going that long. Ever since after Avengers came out, I've said I'm not really interested in either a Hawkeye or a Black Widow movie. I love Hawkeye and I love Black Widow, but these are characters that are standing amongst gods, are completely powerless. Black Widow's really good with a handgun and a stick. Hawkeye's great in a fist fight with a bow and arrow. But when you're in a movie universe with the Sorcerer Supreme, when you're in a movie universe with the Amazing Spider-Man, when you're in a movie universe with the God of Thunder, when you're in a movie universe with Hulk Smash, Am I really all that interested in a Hawkeye? Although I love Hawkeye in all the movies. I love the role he plays in all the movies. Love him. But do I want a standalone Hawkeye movie, or do I think he's better as a supporting character? I think he is better as a supporting character. Do I love Black Widow in all these movies? Abso-damn-lutely. Absolutely. I love her in all the movies. But I like her more in a supporting role like Hawkeye than I am interested in a standalone film of them. Now, whenever you bring that up, it's a powerless character standing amongst gods, everybody then wants to, of course, you know where I'm going with this, everybody wants to bring up the B. Batman. But John, Batman is a hyper exception to the rule. Batman is a hyper exception to the rule. You can't compare anybody else to Batman. Now, there's a Tony Stark. He, naturally doesn't have any superpowers, but he has his magic armor with nanotech that can do anything. So he's got that, which pretty much puts him on par with the Sorcerer Supreme, which is ridiculous. Anyway. And I love Iron Man, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I love Iron Man. So I think that's working against it already. But again, let me get to the main thing. The main reason I don't believe that a Black Widow movie can make $1 billion, if it doesn't, this will be the reason, is this. You just killed her. You just killed her. Some may suggest, for good reason, but John, the fact that they just killed her is going to make people all the more excited to get into the theater. All the more excited to get into the theater to go and see her back. I don't think that's true. Let's take an example of precedence. Let's look at something like Solo. We said for a long time that, look, how successful can Solo be? People are not looking for a Han Solo movie that doesn't have Harrison Ford as Han Solo, especially when we just saw him. But what happened? We had him in the movie, and then he died, and then they didn't. Now, granted, that was a situation where they swapped out the actors. This is a situation where we're still getting Scarlett Johansson. That's a major difference. Let's just put that on the table. That's a major difference between. But still, there's a principle here. And understanding that this movie is a one-shot because she's dead, so this is a prequel of some kind, I just think that while the movie will still be successful and make a lot of money, I honestly think that that is going to dissipate some of the enthusiasm that this movie could have amongst a lot of fans. Even the ones who are interested in seeing a powerless character, just a regular human being like a Black Widow with whatever, I almost feel like she would have been better. I kind of feel like Black Widow would have been better served as a Disney Plus series, much like they're doing with Hawkeye. Because remember, they're doing a Hawkeye Disney Plus series. I'm kind of looking forward to that. But am I interested in a Hawkeye standalone feature film? Actually, no. And the same can be said about Black Widow for me. So anyway, again, let me be clear here. I ain't saying it's impossible for Black Widow to join the $1 billion club. We still got, if this movie's fantastic and amazing and wonderful, hey, it could very well do there. But if it doesn't, and we just saw Captain Marvel hit $1 billion, if Black Widow doesn't, I think for a small part of the reason it's going to be, does a powerless character in a universe full of gods really get that much more attention? Can that movie make more than a Thor Ragnarok? I don't think so. But more importantly, the whole philosophical angle of it, that we just had her on the big screen and she died, and we know she's dead watching this new movie. This is a dead character walking we're watching in this movie. Do we really care? Unless, of course, all this changes, guys. All this changes completely. If all of a sudden the marketing for Black Widow comes out and it kind of suggests the return of Black Widow. If it does that, which of course Marvel, it's the Marvel fake death universe. If they do that, that changes this narrative completely. If all of a sudden the trailers are coming out and it starts with Nat waking up on Vormir going, where was I? And Red Skull's like, yeah, some guy I used to hate with, red, white, and blue suit showed up and gave the Soul Stone back. So, hey, soul for a soul, deal's a deal. He returned the Soul Stone. We got to return you. So you're back. I mean, if the opening trailer shows Red Skull going, Natasha, daughter of Ivan, Arise, for the soul stone has been returned, therefore soul for soul, you're back. If that's what you put in the trailer, this whole thing is off. Then yes, absolutely, even I become a believer that a Black Widow movie could join the $1 billion club. But short of that, I just think if it doesn't, that will be the reason that it doesn't. But who knows? Hey, what do you guys think? Do you think Black Widow will hit the $1 billion film? If so, why? Or do you agree with me that, no, I don't think it will? But if it doesn't hit $1 billion, what do you think the main reason would be that it won't hit $1 billion? Not that it needs to hit $1 billion to be a major box office smash hit. This thing hit $600 million. It's a major smash hit. But, we're talking about the big B club at this point. Jump down the conversation and let me know your thoughts. All right. Let's now move on to the fifth and final topic today. And the fifth and final topic today comes to us from Wendell Apinozzi, who writes, "Greetings, Giovanni. So by now, we all know that Avengers Endgame is adding some post-credits stuff to the movie. My question, with the movie still trailing Avatar by about $40 million, can it make up that difference with just some post-credits stuff?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, Wendell. And yeah, good question. So listen, for those of you who've been living under a rock for the last week or so, Endgame which is still in theaters, is about to add some stuff to the post-credits. Now, of course, Endgame didn't have any post-credit scenes, right? Which is one of the very big disappointing things for a lot of fans in the theaters who went there to go watch the movie. They went there to go see it. Everybody, of course, with an MCU movie expects some big post-credit scene, no post-credit stuff for Endgame. However, now in its 8th or whatever week of release, they're telling people, hey guys, if you go see the movie now and stick around after the credits, now there's going to be some stuff. And apparently what Kevin Feige has said, there will be one deleted scene, a tribute that I'm just assuming at this point will be a Stan Lee tribute and probably be something very touching. And a couple of fun things, which I'm guessing are bloopers or, exit reel stuff, things like that. All stuff that I'm curious to see. The question, though, is, with Avengers Endgame still behind Avatar by really, I think the number right now is about 38 million. I think it's around 38, 37, something like that is the actual. It's not 40, it's a little bit less than that. With it still trailing by like almost $40 million, is adding post-credit stuff to a movie most people have already seen, is that going to be enough by itself to push Avengers Endgame that final $35 to $40 million it needs to actually cross that line and become the number one box office film of all time? The answer is it's going to be close. It's going to be close. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. I mean, look, we are dumb. Let's just acknowledge that. We as film fans are dumb, right? Me, big dummy. The Transformers movies keep being crap, but the new trailer for the new Transformers movie looks awesome, and I get all excited. Oh, this one's going to be the one that redeems Transformers. And what do? Like an idiot, I go all excited, and then like an idiot, I get completely disappointed again. That's me, representative of the film fan, big dummy. That's what we do sometimes. Sometimes when it comes to film franchises that we love or that we want to love, we can be big dummies. We are. And I think it's not being a dummy to want to go and see post-credit stuff. But I think there will be a dumb amount of us. I think there will be a dumb amount of people who will go and buy tickets and whatever for the exact same movie, but just get to see some post-credit stuff that, by the way, is probably going to be available for streaming for nothing in about 3 or 4 weeks. But that's what we as film fans do. I know all the Transformers movies suck, but did you see this new trailer? It looks awesome. I'm sure this one will be good. That's me, and that's how I sounded. But that's what we as film fans do. So really, on the should meter, no. Adding a couple of little things post-credit for a movie should not be enough to add another $35 to $40 million at the box office. It shouldn't. But it might, because there are a lot of people who are excited about it. I'll tell you what, my own brother-in-law wrote to me and said, hey, not Ray, my other brother-in-law, Stan. Stan wrote to me and said, hey, I said that as if his eyes were big. I don't know. He just wrote it to me. Hey, so he writes to me, and my brother-in-law, great. My brother-in-law who married Anne's sister, he's also a Canadian kid from the Toronto area. And we both married these little Filipino girls. Anyway, and he's a Star Wars lover too. It's like they married the same guy, except my brother-in-law Stan is like a 6'9" bodybuilder. I am not. Anyway, so my brother-in-law writes to me, hey, and he sends me a link to one of the stories that says, Avengers Endgame going to add some stuff post-credit. It's like, is this true? I'm like, yeah, Stan, it's true. Oh my God, I got to go see that. And I think there are more people than there should be that are really excited about rushing back to the theater to see a couple of minutes of post-credit stuff. But there are a lot. Now, still, that being said, $35 to $40 million is a big amount of money. Godzilla opening weekend was barely over that. Godzilla's opening weekend was $47 million. That's a significant amount of money. So while I believe it should fall way short, I think it's a coin toss. I'll be straight with you guys. I think at this point it is a straight up coin toss about whether or not a couple of things added post credits is going to be enough to make up $35 to $40 million. Again, it shouldn't, but it might. It might. Even my buddy Soul, who I've had on this show before, big week over at Fine Brothers stuff. He was here last night. He's in my D&D group. Even Soul is texting me. Campea, when do the tickets? I don't have my phone here. Sorry, Campea. Not that he exactly sounds like that either. Campea, when do the tickets go on sale for the extended cut of, Avengers Endgame? And I'm like, well, okay, first of all, buddy, it is not an extended cut. It's the exact same movie. It's just that they're putting a couple things end credits. Don't care when the tickets going on sale. I'm not really sure yet. Let me know when they do. So there are more people than rationally should be that are legitimately excited to rush out to the theater again to see a couple of minutes of post-credit stuff. It's a lot. Is it enough to make up $35 to $40 million? If I've got to give a guess, yes or no, on this, I still don't know why I'm such a bad impersonator of my friends. Anyway, if I had to give a guess, yes or no, as to whether or not this little gimmick of adding a couple of things to a post-credit scenario is going to be enough, I'm going to guess no. Again, but I don't feel confident about that. I think it's going to be close. So, I mean, there are some people think, it's going to make another $70 million with this. No, it's not. But then there are some people who are complete doubters and say it'll make like another $3 or $4 million. I'm like, no, you're underestimating how many people are excited about this. There are more people excited about this than that, believe me. So I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to guess no. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think the addition of one deleted scene, a tribute, and some fun stuff, all according to Kevin Feige, do you think that's going to be enough to get Endgame another $35 to $40 million and push it over that line to where Avatar is no longer the number one film of all time, but Endgame will be until next year when Disney re-releases Avatar to take back the number one film of all time spot so they can make that a part of their marketing for Avatar 2. Let me know what you guys think. Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. I'm sure the next Transformers movie is going to be great. Yeah, John, I'm sure that's the way it's going to work out. Okay, anyway, with that down and out of the way, guys, this is normally the part of the show where we do our movie news feed. However, fact checker Jonathan and his beautiful family have actually gone on a well-earned vacation for a week. So this week we are not going to have a movie news feed this week, but that means we just get to jump right in. My brain is not working today. We're going to jump right in to the live questions today. You guys have been firing in a whole ton of live questions as the show has been going on. So let's jump over there right now and get right to it. And the first live question today comes to us from Massive Jada, who writes, greatest of all time comic superhero is the very first one, the Phantom. Look, honestly, two things on that. I don't think the Phantom gets enough credit. I think the Phantom deserves more credit. That being said, guys, forgive me. It's starting to get a little bit warm in here. I'm going to pop on the AC if you don't mind. So it's going to be a little bit loud in the background. I apologize, but I need to keep myself cool here. I'm going to turn into a sweaty mess. But at the same time, I don't think the Phantom is all that great, but I think he deserves more attention, especially for his role in the whole formation of the whole superhero mythos and stuff like that. And, you know, Billy Zane for life, ladies and gentlemen, but I don't know that I call him the greatest, but hey, man, if he's your favorite, that's awesome. I'll get a Billy Zane tattoo for you. All right, Marie Seifring writes, looking on IMDb, and I was surprised to see that Kenneth Branagh has been nominated for 5 Academy Awards in 3 different fields: screenwriting, acting, and directing. But he has never won. True. Kenneth Branagh is he is one of the greatest storytellers in the business. And he can do it all. He's a Shakespearean actor. He is a great director. He's a wonderful writer. He can do it all. He is a master filmmaker. That doesn't mean I love everything he's done. I don't. I didn't like Murder on the Orient Express. I wanted to. You guys know how excited I was for that movie. I didn't love it. I didn't think it was terrible, but I didn't love it. So, not everything Kenneth Branagh does will be absolute gold. But he is amazing. And it is really neat when you see a guy, and there are other people like it, but not many, who've got like nominations in multiple fields like that: screenwriting, acting, and directing. I think maybe a Clooney does. I think the Clooney monster, George Clooney, he may. I think Clint Eastwood does. I don't know if, actually, you know what? I don't know if Clint Eastwood's got one for screenplay. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, whatever. But it's an exclusive club. There's not a ton of people with like multiple nominations across multiple disciplines like that. And I think you raise a really great point, Maria, and just another reason why I am such a big Kenneth Branagh fan. I love when his name gets attached to something, particularly when he's directing it. I get very excited. Obviously, he's got one of my favorite comic book movies of all time in Thor. His version of Cinderella was magical. It was great. I love what this guy does. And that's outside of all of his Shakespearean stuff. But I love him. I think he's great. And thanks for bringing that up, Maria. I really appreciate that. All right. Next up, Nick writes, saw Toy Story 4 again. I noticed Boo from Monsters, Inc. in a couple of scenes. Yeah, a lot of people are saying, like, I read this thing that said somebody at Pixar has revealed that there are over 100 Easter eggs in Toy Story 4. Over 100. And we were doing the Toy Story 4 spoiler discussion last night, and some people were pointing some out. But one of the things you've probably seen around the web is that Boo from Monsters, Inc. is one of those things. Not going to say where it is. You got to keep your eyes open for, but that's something you got to keep your eye out for. Funniest Toy Story out of all 4. I agree. I think I don't think it's the best Toy Story movie, although it might be, but I'm not thinking the show right now. But I do think it was the funniest. I don't think I've ever laughed harder at a Toy Story movie than I did in this one. Thanks for replying to my movie wall email. Oh, that's right. You sent in the picture of your big DVD collection. That was an impressive wall, sir. That was an impressive wall of DVDs, let me tell you. But yeah, I agree. I think this is probably the funniest of them. And I only noticed like 2 or 3 of the Easter eggs myself. So I got to go back and just keep my eyes looking around the periphery of the action to see if I can pick up on all these great Easter eggs everybody's talking about. All right. Zaya writes, do you guys have a favorite martial arts film? Mine is bad, but I do. Here's a couple of my favorite ones. The Shokasagi classic, Revenge of the Ninja. It's one of the, but one of the first ninja films I ever watched back in the 80s when I was a kid. And then I got hooked on Shokasagi movies after that. But Revenge of the Ninja is one of my all-time favorites to this day. Another one that I love that very few people have seen, it's Kung Fu Soccer. If I'm remembering the name right. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, why did I say Kung Fu Soccer? Shaolin Soccer. Shaolin Soccer. That was actually stars and directed Stephen Chow, who's done a number of these big ones. A lot of people, when people hear Stephen Chow, the movie that most people instantly go to is they think about Kung Fu Hustle, which came out after Shaolin Soccer. And apparently, recently it was in the news that they said, I think they said they're going to do another Shaolin or another Kung Fu Hustle. They're going to do at some point. At least that's what I thought I heard. But anyway, a lot of people think of Kung Fu Hustle when they think of Stephen Chow. My favorite, and I like Kung Fu Hustle, I think Shaolin Soccer is just hilarious. And given that that movie was made in 2001, and the visual effects do not hold up today. At the time, The visual effects for this lower budget kung fu movie was crazy good. Crazy good. It's basically a soccer movie crossed with a kung fu movie crossed with a Dragon Ball Z movie. That's kung fu, or that's Shaolin soccer. I keep wanting to say kung fu soccer. I'm getting mixed up with kung fu hustle. That is Shaolin soccer. It is adorable. I love it. So it's a couple of weird ones that are my favorite. Revenge of the Ninja from the 80s, 2001 Stephen Chow's Shaolin Soccer. Those are my favorite martial arts films of all time. Murray Reich writes, I enjoyed Toy Story 4. Very emotional, funny, heartwarming. Seeing Woody caring for Bonnie's Forky, despite not feeling appreciated, shows how much I love the characters and how he's grown over the series. Absolutely. And Murray's just revealing stuff that's already in trailers. He sees his thing is he's got to keep Forky with Bonnie. It's very important to Bonnie. It's in the trailers. So I tell you what, man, yesterday we did our Toy Story 4 open spoiler discussion. And thank you to all of you who were there for that. And as I'm talking about the movie for an hour and a half, I'm realizing more and more, you know what? I like this movie even more than I thought. Like, I knew I loved it, but I think I like it even more than I initially thought. And I won't go into all the stuff that makes it so special because I don't want to give spoilers away for those of you who haven't seen it yet, but it is such a brilliantly done, emotionally touching, super special movie on so many different layers and some storytelling techniques that are really advanced. All done up in the package of a Pixar animated film. It's beautiful, it's touching, it's hilarious, it's funny, goes into deeper meanings than any of the other Toy Story movies before, maybe more than any other animated movie before. And I'll tell you what, Murray, the more I think about it, the more I like it. I got to get out and watch it for a second and third time this week. I got to go see it for a second and third time this week because I've only seen it once. I've still only watched it once. All right, Willow Yang writes, can we hear some more wisdom from Forky? What does he think of Toy Story 4's box office performance? Well, actually, as a matter of fact, Forky is still here. Forky, what do you think of Toy Story 4's? It's the biggest of all the Toy Story movies, and I credit that to me. I'm in it. Well, yeah, I think that is a big reason, Forky. I think you were a very compelling presence in the thing. And also because Peter Docter said we can't let John Campea down. Peter Docter said that about me. Yeah, he loves you, John. Oh, that's amazing. That's good to hear. Thank you, Forky. Okay, there we go. Wisdom from Forky and how he feels. He credits himself. To the reason why Toy Story 4 is the biggest opening weekend of any Toy Story film. And maybe he's right about that. All right. Nobody else wanted to see Forky. Nobody else wanted to see me do Forky, but there it was. Star Killer writes, Darth Vader in Rogue One has been the best Vader I've seen. Not me. I think a Vader solo film, just hunting Jedi would be fun, or a Darth Bane. I don't know. Like, first of all, Vader's appearance... Of course, when people think of Rogue One, I think Rogue One is an amazing movie. And I thought it was amazing before you ever got to the Darth Vader scene where he's cutting fools down. But whenever you talk about Rogue One, that's usually where people first go to. But that was just a quick action scene. It was brilliant and awesome, and I loved it, but it's just a quick action scene. You know, Vader in Empire Strikes Back is the best Vader I've ever seen. That's the best Vader. And then follow up to that, Vader in Return of the Jedi. But, I mean, those to me are the best Vader. Yes, you got the popcorn, boom pow action sequence from Vader in Rogue One, and it's great, and I'm with you. I love it. But that's just one little thing. The character of Vader, Empire, Return of the Jedi, I mean, that's Vader at his best. To me, that's Vader at his best. And again, I'm sick and tired of prequel stuff. I don't want to see... now let's go back again and look at something that we already know happened. Vader helping the Emperor hunt down the rest of the Jedi. Like, don't get me wrong. It's a Star Wars movie. If they put it out, I'd go see it. And I'd look forward to it. But honestly, I'm over the backwards storytelling. I'm over it. If you want to go backwards, go 1,000 years backwards, so it's not really a prequel anymore. Now it's really, truly its own thing. Go back to Old Republic days. Then I'm fine, but I'm kind of over it. I'm not interested. Like if Kathleen Kennedy were to call me, which I'm pretty sure, well, she'd have to unblock my number first, but if Kathleen Kennedy were to call me and say, John, what do you think about us doing a Vader movie? We're thinking about doing a Vader movie during the time that he was hunting down the Jedi. I'm probably gonna, tired of it. Don't need to see Vader doing something we already know that he does. Don't need to see a young Yoda movie. Don't need to see a young Jabba the Hutt movie. don't need to see a Boba Fett movie where he comes home, takes off his helmet, and plays with his kids. But that's just me. That's just me. I'm not saying my opinion reflects the majority. Not at all, Starkiller. Not at all. But I mean, that's kind of my thought on it. All right. Mark Badolato writes, hey, would highly recommend Denzel's AFI Lifetime Achievement that aired on TNT. Such a touching ceremony for one of our best actors, and Denzel is one of our best actors. And I did not know about that. Thank you for putting that on my radar, Mark. I'm gonna want to check that out because I love Denzel Washington. I mean, but who doesn't? That's like saying water wet. Of course, everybody loves Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington's the man. I mean, we all know this. But that sounds really cool. I will have to check that out. Thank you for putting that on my radar, Mark. All right, next up, Zaya writes, other than MMA, do you have a favorite martial art? Well, MMA isn't a martial art. See, MMA stands for mixed martial arts, which is, basically the notion of taking no one fighting style, but training in multiple fighting styles. It's mixed. It's mixed martial arts. My favorite, ever since when I started, like every other kid, when I started martial arts, I started in, karate, right? I went down to Huntington Park on the Hamilton Mountain, and there was a community center, Huntington Park. They had karate classes there. That's where I got my start. But when I was a little bit older, I watched this thing called UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, with these monstrous dudes. Just now, remember, back then, there were no weight divisions. And it was filled with these monstrous, huge guys. And then you had this little 175-pound soaking wet dude, awkward-looking nerdy kid by the name of Hoist Gracie, who came in a jiu-jitsu gi and fought with a gi on, which you can't do in UFC anymore. But he fought with a gi. He looked like this nerdy little kid that all these other guys were going to snap like a twig. And Hoist Gracie ripped through everybody. He wrapped himself like an anaconda around these guys and either choked them all out, heel kicked their kidneys into farting blood for the next 5 months, or choked him out. This little guy, and Hoist Gracie and the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu family introduced the world to Jiu-Jitsu, which nobody had really thought anything of before. Everybody was about the flashy martial arts. And ever since that day, I've been obsessed with Jiu-Jitsu. I've been obsessed with Jiu-Jitsu ever since that day. So that's actually my favorite martial art. Thanks to the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu family. Nick writes, also, by the way, I live in Australia and I just found out we're not getting the expanded credits to Endgame. Really? I'm a huge MCU fan, so I'm disappointed. Well, Nick, don't be that disappointed. Everything that they're going to show on those things are going to be available either online or on their streaming thing in the next 4 to 5 weeks. So don't worry about it. You're going to get to see it soon enough anyway. It's not like you're going to miss out on anything. And it's not like you have to wait months for it to come. Rob J00 writes, hey, John, just wondering, what's your thoughts about the rumors of a Matrix 4 reboot going around? And we also ordered our t-shirt from your store. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Rob. For those of you who know what Rob's talking about, if you're watching this show on a mobile device, which most people do, underneath this video, you should see my merchandising shelf where, there's John Campea Show t-shirts, mugs, things like that. If you want something there, go ahead and get it. Anyway, there have been Matrix 4 rumors since a month after Matrix 3 was in theaters. There have been Matrix 4 rumors forever. And for the last 5, 6, 7 years, I have had I'll believe it when I see it. Because every few months, a new Matrix reboot or Matrix 4 rumors start circulating. And clearly this is one that's circulating because Keanu Reeves is the hottest thing right now. So I don't put any stock in it. Doesn't mean it's impossible. But I don't believe it's time for a Matrix 4. I don't think there's an audience for a Matrix 4, to be honest with you. And I don't think it's going to happen. But never say never. Crazier things have happened in this business, but right now I don't put any weight to it. I don't give any credence to it at all right now. All right, next one up comes to us from Dalton Burdett, who sends in a really generous super chat. Thank you, Dalton. I appreciate you supporting the channel on that level, man. All right, The other day on the show, somebody asked if there had ever been an actor that played the same character in two completely unrelated films, not in a shared universe. Michael Keaton as Ray Nicolte in Jackie Brown and Out of Sight. Are we sure it's not shared cinematic universe? Are we sure? Because, you know, in that Quentin Tarantino world, there's the Vega brothers. I'm not saying it is. I'm legitimately, that's not a rhetorical question. I'm legitimately asking. Do we know that it's not shared cinematic universe? Do we know that? There are a few things that maybe suggest it might be, but maybe it's not. And for all I know, Quentin Tarantino once definitively said, this is all happening in the same world, or definitively said, this isn't happening in the same world. I just like to use the same character family names. I don't know. Maybe you guys do. I'm not being facetious when I'm asking. It's not a rhetorical question. Do we know? I don't know if we know. It's a good one to bring up, though, Dalton. It's a really good one to bring up, but it raises an even bigger question. Do we know? And I'm not really sure. I'd be fascinated, Dalton, though, to know the answer. That's a hell for sure. If anybody does, do me a favor. So go to John. My email address is john@thejohncampeashow.com. So john@thejohncampeashow.com. If you know definitively that Quentin Tarantino said something about that one way or the other, could you email me a link? Because I'd be fascinated to know what the answer to that is, because I simply don't know. For as long as I've been watching Quentin Tarantino films, you'd think I would know, and I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. Help me out, Dalton. Help me out, the rest of you. Please send me an answer. All right. Ben Hayusa writes, one of two. Hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here, unfortunately. Hey, John and Rob. Been a while. Non-movie topic. Just wanted to share that I will be pursuing a new journey in my life. That's always exciting. So much has happened to me personally lately, and it made me wanting to do more. So in the next month, I'll be heading to the Air Force. It's been fun talking movies here. I look forward to what else my life has to offer. Well, listen, that's awesome, Ben. That is awesome. Put the Air Force thing aside for a second. I think it's exciting and awesome when somebody, because I've done it a couple of times in my life, when somebody in their life goes, I need a new direction. I need a new direction. I want to do something different. I want to take a chance. I want to do something that's been on my mind and on my heart. I think that's awesome just to start with. Now you add on top of that new direction for you is in service to your country. That's even better. That's even better. So full kudos to you, brother. I know you've been a long-time viewer of the show here, and I hope that even when you're in the Air Force, you get the opportunity to jump in and participate and watch some of the John Campea Show and listen to all the bantering of me and Rob and the other film fan community members and the chats and stuff like that. I hope you still get that opportunity. But honestly, Ben, I think that's exciting stuff. That's great to hear, and good on you, man. Good on you. Kudos to you. Hurrah, sir. Hurrah. All right. Nick writes, also, Box Office Mojo didn't include Superman's 18 number one week box office run because the page you were looking at yesterday only went so far as back as 1980. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, somebody brought up yesterday about Superman being number one at the box office 18 weeks in a row. And I looked up a chart and it didn't have that. I think it said at the time that the longest streak was 15 weeks. I didn't notice that it said it only went back as far as 1982. I'll have to double check that. That's interesting. But it still keeps the same point, right? That as we went down the list of all these films for the longest number of weeks at number one, none of them are in the last 7 or 8, 9 years. Not since like Avatar. I mean, maybe you get to one that was in there for 5 weeks, but certainly nothing that's in like double digits because the movie-going habits of the general audience has changed. Everything's more front-end loaded now. So you don't get stuff like that anymore. So that's interesting you brought that up, Nick. I'll go back over to that list and double-check to see if I can get the real list. And maybe we'll talk about that again sometime. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. Cam Wood writes, going to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time this year, you're going to have fun, man. You are going to have fun. Any idea when the schedule releases? Shame I probably won't be able to see Lion King opening weekend, though. They generally release the schedule 2 weeks before Comic-Con. I believe that's generally when they put the full schedule out. Like, for instance, I'm doing my panel again this year. The Masters of the Web panel, which is going to be right now. I'm still trying to add 1 or 2 more people, but right now it's myself. It's Christian Harloff. It's from the G4 days and Film Threat, Chris Gore. I love Chris. And one of my favorite guys in the business, director of Fanboys and writer of my favorite Dungeons and Dragons book of all time, Kyle Newman, who's also married to Jamie King. She's got her new show out right now. But Kyle Newman, It's going to be, so we're going to be doing our panel there. I hope you plan on coming to attend our panel. It's going to be a lot of fun. However, I'm not allowed to tell you when my panel is right yet. I can't even tell you what day of the week it is. I know when it is. I know the exact time, place, and day that my panel is, but we're not allowed to say when it is yet. And I understand why. Scheduling something like Comic-Con with so many things that go on at it is probably a big nightmare. Probably a big nightmare. And they may need to change things around. So even though they've already told me the day, place, and time of my panel, that could change. It could change. So they're asking all of us who have panels at Comic-Con not to reveal when our panels are. But as soon as I'm allowed to tell you guys, I will let you guys know. But please, if you are going to go to San Diego Comic-Con, plan on coming to our Masters of the Web panel. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right. James Classman writes, "Hey, John, is there any particular reason why number of tickets sold is not used as a metric to determine a film's success instead of total revenue?" Yeah, many. That would be a very bad thing to do. That would be a bad thing to do. Look, it all comes down to it's the same kind of question, James, as why don't, when the all-time box office numbers are talked about, why don't they include inflation? Why don't they talk about inflation? Well, because while inflation is a variable, and while number of tickets sold is a variable, there are also many other variables that would change our perception of those variables. Because here's the thing. Okay. Lion King. Let's make the tickets $1 each. You think there's any doubt that Lion King would sell the most tickets than any other movie in history? Of course it would. But there's another variable there. It's a cheaper ticket. So therefore, more tickets will get sold. And cost of tickets is a factor. It's a major factor. Number of tickets sold, to me, is an irrelevant one. It's a completely irrelevant one, right? Because, let's go back to, the days of Gone with the Wind. Okay. In the days where 1/10 the amount of wide release movies got released, when going to the theater, even by scale, even if you want to go by inflation and scale, movie ticket prices were way cheaper back then. And I'm talking even if you take inflation and scale into account, movie ticket prices were way cheaper back then than they were today. There was less stuff competing for people's entertainment dollars. There weren't 500 channels on TV. There wasn't the video game industry that's a multi-billion-dollar industry every single year competing for those entertainment dollars. There wasn't Netflix and Hulu and streaming on-demand services that people could stay at home and watch whatever they wanted whenever they wanted. You could go, well, let's look at this variable, but ignore all the other variables. That paints a very inaccurate and biased picture. You could almost make anything, you could make a case for anything if you pick and choose which variables you want to apply to the scenario. If you pick and choose just one or two variables that help tell your story or the outcome that you want there to be, then anybody can do that. The best thing to do is go, look, we either take all the variables into consideration or we take none of them. And the most even-handed way to really evaluate it is to take none of them. Just take it all at face value. Because the minute you start playing that game of picking and choosing which variables you want to take into consideration and which ones you don't, you've completely invalidated any results you come up with. Once you pick and choose which variables you want and which ones you don't, you completely nullify and invalidate any conclusion you come to. So you either take them all or you take none. And the best way to measure it is by taking none and just taking it all at face value. Yes, movie tickets cost more now, but there's more competition. Yes, there's inflation, but there wasn't the video game industry. Yes, you can take this in, but not nearly as many movies came out before. It goes back and forth. So the easiest and non-perfect, but easiest way nonetheless to do all of that is by just going face value. Because again, you can say number of tickets. Okay, put Lion King out at $1 a ticket. Oh, but that's unfair. That's a variable. Well, there's lots of variables. So that's my thoughts on that, James. That's why I generally, as an individual movie fan, I reject the notion of tickets sold as an argument, and I also reject the notion of inflation. I reject those because those are picking and choosing individual variables while rejecting others just to come to your own desired conclusion. I'm not saying that you do that, but I'm saying that's ultimately what we would do. That's what we would ultimately do. And so I think face value, that's why the industry has maintained a face value approach when setting records and evaluating historical context. They've gone with a face value approach. That's why I believe in a face value approach. It is the only true way to do it. Even though it's flawed, it is the least flawed out of any other approach, in my opinion. In my opinion, strictly my opinion. But you've asked me for my opinion, so there you go, man. All right, thanks for saying that. It's an interesting question, James. All right. Estevel Garcia writes, speaking of Endgame, extended release, for me, I would watch it again if they show some signs that Black Widow is alive. She deserves better. That woman pose at the final battle without her still hurts. Well, I mean, here's the interesting thing, Estevel. First of all, I think you're right. If somehow, some way, just like I said, if they did the Black Widow movie suggesting that she's back from the dead and it's not a prequel, that could be $1 billion movie. In that way, if they said that, oh, this Endgame, remember, this is not an extended cut. This is the exact same cut of the movie with a post-credits scene that's a deleted scene. That's all it is. It is not an extended cut of the movie. Be clear about that. But if they were to say this is an extended cut of the movie that gives a little hint that maybe Widow returns from the dead again, like so many other MCU characters, then hell yes. I think that totally changes how many people would run out to go see this movie. I think maybe it doubles, honestly. I think it maybe doubles the amount of people that would run out to go see this movie. I really do. Now, but let me address the one thing you said in there, Estevel. The character deserved it. Here's the thing. No character deserves anything. No character deserves anything. Black Widow got given a hero's death, sacrificing herself to save the world. That's the highest honor you can give any superhero. And they gave her that. But whenever somebody says to me, the character deserved this, what I instantly think of is the movie, you guys probably know where I'm going with this, Misery, based on the Stephen King novel. If you haven't seen Misery, go and watch Misery. It's one of the best movies ever made from a Stephen King source material. James Caan is in it. He's great. And I'm forgetting, why am I forgetting the name of it? She won Best Actress at the Academy Awards. Kathy Bates. Kathy Bates won the Academy Award for that. And Kathy Bates is basically this crazy fan who didn't like that James Caan, who's a writer of a very popular novel series with this female hero. And I guess he has his female hero die in his latest book. And Kathy Bates is this crazy fan who basically kidnaps James Caan. It's like, and tortures him saying, bring her back. She deserves, you can't kill her. She deserves better than that. How dare you do that to her? Blah, blah, blah. And that's what whenever I hear people say that my character deserved better, it kind of reminds me of Kathy Bates in that, for you to see what I mean. But I'm not saying you're Kathy Bates in that situation, although it sounds like that's what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I don't believe characters deserve anything. Are there characters that I'd like to see done better? Sure, absolutely. But I thought, like I said, I think Black Widow got given a big hero send-off. She died sacrificing herself for the world, all that kind of stuff. And I thought they gave her a very high honor. It is weird to see that A-Force thing without Black Widow in there, but that's what the story was. And the story is not there to serve the characters. Characters are there to serve the story. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. But you're damn right, Estevel, you're damn right. If they showed a hint that this, Avengers post-credit stuff was going to be in a little bit of an extended version, giving a hint that Black Widow is still alive, double. It would double the amount of people running out to go see it. Double it. Anyway, that's what I think. So I think you're bang on that. Fine Nguyen writes, when did you own your last 4x3 TV? 20 years ago for me. I would guess, I can tell you, the last apartment I lived in before moving to LA, when I first moved into the apartment, I had a very good Sony 4x3 TV. It was 4x3. when I first moved into it. That was about, I'm going to say 13 years ago. 13, maybe 12 years ago. Anyway, I wasn't in that apartment for long. It was my favorite apartment that I've ever lived in. It was this like 15-foot high ceilings, all exposed brick, like industrial style loft, hardwood floor. Oh, it was gorgeous. It was a great bachelor pad. Anyway, I very quickly swapped that out for my first 16:9 TV. So that's when I got. So yeah, you were way ahead of the curve for me, man. I still had a 4:3 TV like 13 years ago. And then I upgraded to my first 16:9. All right, JB Bonifacio writes, would Toy Story 4 make your Pixar top 10? Yes. Where exactly in my top 10? Not 100% sure, but absolutely would make it into my top 10. CJ Dunn writes, took my 2-year-old son to Toy Story 4 for his first theater experience. That's awesome, man. He loved it, hypnotized the whole time. Looking forward to more Toy Story 4 release this weekend than I am for Endgame. There you go. Of course you should be. Of course you should be more excited for a new movie that is awesome than another movie that is also awesome, but all they're giving you is a few things post-credits. Absolutely, you should be more excited for Toy Story 4. Absolutely. All right, doesn't mean you can't be excited for both. I'm just saying you should be excited for that one. The Gixer73 sends in a super chat. Thank you, Gixer. Patrick Conway writes, Endgame just beat Avatar's original box office run. Here we go, Patrick, the buttbirds. But, I get it. Bottom line, Endgame is still behind Avatar. It may pass it, but none of this buttbird stuff, but inflation, but original run, but re-release, but I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear about, well, if you look at it from this particular point of view, I don't want to hear about that. Bottom line, what's the number one film of all time? Avatar still? Okay, then it's Avatar. And Endgame may cross it. And when it does, I don't want to hear about but inflation. But I don't want to hear about it. Bottom line is, Endgame will be the number one film in the world. That's all I want to hear. No more of this buttbird stuff. No more buttbirds. Just tell me bottom line, what's the number one film in the world of all time? It's Avatar. And when and if Endgame passes it, I don't want to hear anything else. Bottom line, it's Endgame. And then if Avatar re-releases again before Avatar 2, then it'll become, who cares? But all I care about is the bottom line. What's the number one film of all time worldwide? Avatar. There it is. That's all there is to it. No buts about it. All right. MZod780 writes, good afternoon from New York, John. 2 things that really annoy me as a fan. 1, it's a cash grab. 2, nobody asked for this movie. Well, and they both do too, and I've done both of them, and we've all done both of them. Like, first of all, it's a cash grab. I hate that because every movie is a cash grab. Every movie studio green lights a movie if they believe it will make them money. They are all cash grabs. It's not only cash grabs. It's not the only thing, but it is the first, foremost, and most primary reason a studio greenlights a movie. Will it make us money? Or will we lose money and have to fire people? That's what they ask. The second one is nobody asked for this movie because, technically speaking, nobody asked for any movie, really. We don't need every movie. Some of the greatest movies of all time were movies that nobody asked. Nobody asked for a Titanic movie. It's the 3rd biggest film of all time. Now, sometimes I'll use that terminology. Look, nobody was asking for a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford. And what I really should be saying is, people don't want. It wasn't just for lack of asking. People are not interested at all in a Han Solo movie that doesn't have Harrison Ford in it when we just saw Harrison Ford playing Han Solo like a year ago. So that's a different thing. That's a different thing. So it all depends on what's the meaning behind it, MZod. It all depends on what's the meaning behind it. But yeah, we've all got the traits, and we all do it. We all do it. Some way, in some form, from time to time, we've all done it. Me, you, all of we. Every annoying film fan habit, we've all done it. So let's always be clear about that. We're always talking about all of us, because I've done it, you've done it, we've all done it. Patrick Conway writes, if Aquaman and Captain Marvel can join the club, Widow has a chance. Again, but I think those are 2 very different, separate sets of contexts. With Captain Marvel, the first Marvel solo female hero, it's an Academy Award winning actress, although Scarlett Johansson's fabulous, of course. but it's also very cosmic in nature. It's a superpowered character with all that kind of stuff. And we didn't just see a movie where Captain Marvel died. Right? I mean, so there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of differences to the context here. Aquaman, hey, I love Jason Momoa as Aquaman. You know, it was a year since the last DCEU movie. Everybody loves Jason Momoa. He's a big, charismatic, great superstar. The trailers looked really fun and engaging and funny, and we didn't just see Aquaman die in the previous movie. And again, it's a totally different world and universe. It's this mythical underwater Atlantean kingdom, and there's fantasy, and there's all that kind of stuff in it. It's a very different situation from a Black Widow movie. And again, I don't want to pretend like I'm saying there is no way Black Widow makes $1 billion. Of course there is. Of course there is. I'm just saying, I think it's problematic to say, well, if Aquaman and Captain Marvel did it, then Black Widow will do it. I think that's problematic because you're ignoring a lot of other factors. But is it possible? Of course it's possible. It's Scarlett Johansson. It's a character that's been in the MCU for a long time. Again, though, it's a non-powered hero. It's not fantasy. To a degree it is, obviously. It's really more of a Bond-style movie, I'm guessing. And we just saw her die in the last movie. She's dead and she's gone. And so we know there's really nowhere for this movie to go. And I think those things are going to come into play. But who knows? Again, this movie may come out and it might be the best comic book movie of all time. And if that's the case, then yeah, $1 billion becomes an easy proposition. We'll have to wait and see. Kevin Lewis writes, Caddyshack, Animal House, Vacation are great, but did you ever see 1941 with John Belushi? I did when I was a kid. I mean, long after it was in theaters, obviously, but I did. Actually, Dan Aykroyd is in that too, directed by Steven Spielberg. Basically, it's the idea of this. It was shortly after Pearl Harbor. It imagines the world shortly after Pearl Harbor, and everybody in California is paranoid about the Japanese attacking California, and it's about some of these guys that do something about it anyway. It's a comedy. It's honestly my second least favorite Steven Spielberg film. I didn't love 1941. It's my second least favorite. My least favorite Steven Spielberg film is the one he did with Tom Hanks, The Terminal, which I wanted to love it, obviously, but I honestly, I don't think it's good. He's my all-time favorite filmmaker, but I think that is the one that I didn't think was very good. But my second least favorite is honestly probably 1941. Kevin Lewis writes, Dark Phoenix better than X-Men 3 and Apocalypse. Yes. Yeah, I think Dark Phoenix is not the worst X-Men film. I think it is better than X-Men Last Stand. I think it's better than X-Men Apocalypse, and I think it's better than X-Men Origins Wolverine. I think it's better than all three. It is not one of the better X-Men films, not at all. But I think it was far from being the worst, as a lot of people were painting it as. And hey, it's all subjective. If they think it's the worst, they think it's the worst. But I see it a little bit differently. I think it's better than a number of X-Men films. Still not good, but better than many. All right. Let's see here. Chris Feldman writes, rewatched 2 of my favorite movies this weekend, A Fish Called Wanda and Beautiful Girls. Great ensemble cast, both of them. Dude, A Fish Called Wanda is one of my all-time favorite comedies. Oh, no, it's Ken coming to kill me. I love A Fish Called Wanda. That movie's Jamie Lee Curtis is so great in that. The whole cast is just stellar, with a couple of Monty Python guys, by the way, as well. Kevin Kline is so good in this movie. If you haven't seen A Fish Called Wanda, my God, watch A Fish Called Wanda. It's so great. It's so funny. Thank you, Chris, just for making me think about that movie, because it's so awesome. What a great double feature. All right, Joe Byram writes, I decided to watch the Bionic movies they made in the 80s. I was blown away when I watched the second one, The Bionic Showdown, when lo and behold, a young Sandra Bullock starred as the new Bionic Woman. I don't remember those movies at all, Joe. I'll be straight up with you. Obviously, I remember The Bionic Man. As a kid, I would watch the reruns on TV. Obviously, I remember The Bionic Woman. As a kid, I'd watch the reruns on TV. I do not remember the Bionic movies. Let alone The Bionic Showdown. I don't remember that at all. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. But damn it if you didn't just make me curious, Joe. Damn it if you didn't just make me curious. I'm going to have to go and look into that. All right, Pat O'Connor writes, I forget we're getting Pixar content on Disney+. Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, Disney proper, National Geographic. They're going to... It's crazy the stuff they're going to have on there. It is crazy. It's still going to be dwarfed by the amount of content on Netflix, but it's the content we want. And at $7 a month, I guarantee you they're going to increase the prices. Not long after Disney Plus launches, they will increase the prices. But I'm telling you what, they're going to have on there the stuff we want, including the Pixar movies. Film Chris writes, I recently rewatched the Naked Gun movies, with my dad. I used to love them as a kid. I think today some of the jokes are outdated, but still a lot of funny moments. What do you think about them? Some of the greatest spoof comedy things of all time. Probably other than Airplane, probably the greatest. You know, nice beaver. I mean, they were so ridiculous. And yes, you are absolutely right, Film Chris. Some of the jokes today don't hold up. But some of the humor in it is absolutely timeless. And it's kind of like The Godfather in a way that when you watch it, you'll realize, wow, a lot of movies have copied Naked Gun in different ways, different jokes that they've done in different ways. It's great. I think it's a wonderful time to sit down and watch a Naked Gun movie. Every time you do, even with O.J. Simpson, every time you do, it's a great time to watch a Naked Gun movie. So that's a good one, Film Chris. Let's see. Paul Leo writes, King Kong is 1/3 scale, the size of Godzilla. How fight? No. They've said that in Godzilla Skull Island, that is not yet a fully grown Kong. That's not Kong full grown. They've emphasized that the Kong we see in Skull Island, which is significantly smaller than Godzilla, is not the fully grown Kong. And remember, Godzilla versus Kong takes place, 50 years? 40 years after the events of Kong Skull Island. King Kong going to be big boy. How much bigger they're going to make him, I'm not sure. But remember, he's going to be significantly bigger than he was in that original movie. Don't know what to put writes. To me, the greatest power is hope. His greatest strength, restraint. Come on, Warner Brothers, make Man of Steel 2 before I TKO you SOBs. A-OK, LOL, I know you hate acronyms, John, I do. And yeah, look, you guys know what I think about Man of Steel. It is the most underrated comic book movie of all time. It is one of the greatest comic book movies of all time in my top 10. Certainly the most underappreciated comic book movie ever made. I love this movie dearly. However, that being said, they have not enjoyed great success as much as I love him, and I love Henry Cavill desperately as Superman. He's my all-time favorite Superman. They have not had the success that they have wanted with this Superman. That said, I really don't think they plan on doing a Man of Steel 2. I really don't. You know, if you're planning on doing Man of Steel 2, when you're asked about the status of Henry Cavill, you don't say, and this was their official statement, currently we have no plans for Superman. How do you currently have no plans for the granddaddy of all superheroes? How do you not currently have plans? Clearly because they're moving in a different direction. Now, that might not be true. Maybe they will go back to the Henry Cavill Superman, which I desperately want them to do. I desperately want them to do that. I just don't really think right now that the tea leaves are saying that that's what they're actually going to do. So hopefully I'm wrong. Let's find out. All right. Rohit Mukundan writes, thought Toy Story 4 was a great epilogue to the trilogy, wrapping up the loose ends and giving everyone a send-off. Like one final episode set after the series finale made me all warm and fuzzy. Yeah, the funny thing I said, Rohit, is that I believe that while Toy Story 3 for now is still actually my favorite of the Toy Story movies, I actually believe Toy Story 4 is a better ending for the franchise, even better than Toy Story 3 was. I think Toy Story 3 is the better overall film, but I think Toy Story 4 was the best way to end the series. And I won't say anything more than that because clearly a lot of you guys still haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't want to spoil it, but God, it's a special movie. It's a special, special movie, Rowan, and I totally agree. It was a really nice send-off. I like the way you put that. It's like one extra episode after the season finale, or after the series finale. It does kind of have that feel to it, doesn't it? I like that. All right, Truth Is writes, Hulk may have been severely exposed to gamma after the snap, which could perhaps lead to Red Hulk or possibly World War Hulk. What do you think? They didn't do that. They just had him still normal. He was still 100% normal. I don't think you're ever going to see them do Red Hulk. I would love World War Hulk, but the problem is they've diminished Hulk so much, you'd have a hard time selling that. You'd have a hard time selling the notion that it's all the superheroes against Hulk. It should have been that way, but they've diminished Hulk so much the last number of films that you would have a really hard time getting the audience on board with that now. Hulk has been a footnote in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. And look, we all love Infinity War and Endgame, absolutely. But even in our favorite movies, there's a few things we wish they would have done differently, and I really wish they handled Hulk differently. He's the Hulk. He's, as Loki called him, the monster. The Hulk, when the way Loki would describe Hulk, he was the nuclear option. He's the thing everybody had to be worried about, was Hulk. What you really got to be worried about is Hulk. And then they turned him into a footnote, and I have no idea why. So no, I really don't think, truth is, I don't think they're going to do anything like that. And by the way, you don't need, if they wanted to, you don't need the gamma exposure for this. Nah. So no, I don't think they're going to do it. It would be interesting, but I don't think they will. Drew Vunderbar writes, I trust you had a great gaming night. I did. As a matter of fact, we had a wonderful time last night. Thank you for asking, man. And Vunderbar follows up with, I consider myself a movie buff. That's why I follow your excellent show and other shows like Flick Connection and Cinefix. You know, it's great. One of the great things about the film fan community, and this is why I'm always telling people, add your voice to the conversation. Make your own blog, make your own podcast, make your own YouTube channel. Doesn't matter if 5 people watch it or 500 people watch it. Doesn't matter. You need to lend your voices. And the great thing about the film fan community is that there are a lot of voices out there. And it's not just mine. There's a lot of great voices out there just to add to the overall film community experience. And I think that's one of the great things about it, Wunderbar. All right, Royce Freeman writes, I'm working on a film about the #MeToo issue, and a female actress told me that it is inappropriate for a man to tell the story. Thoughts? Interesting. You know, it's funny. There was a story that came out this morning about how Danny Boyle, if you look at all of Danny Boyle's films, all of his films have male lead characters. And he was asked about that, and he said, the reason is, I don't feel like I should be making a movie about a female lead character. I kind of would feel like an imposter. And the basic idea is this. The world has had such a strong agenda to keep women in their place for so long that there is a movement now to end those long-lasting agendas and to get rid of those long-lasting agendas that have been there. And we're seeing women get more opportunities today. It's still not nearly enough, but it just makes sense. It's like, oh my God, like female director representation is so low. I mean, for heaven's sakes, if there's a female lead movie, wouldn't that be a good opportunity to give a female director a shot? I can see that argument. That's something like an Academy Award winner director like Danny Boyle seems to feel. To the specific question about this specific issue, Royce, the one thing, do I think it is inappropriate for a man to be telling this story? Not at all. Any more than I thought it was inappropriate for a female director to direct a Punisher movie. There was nothing wrong with that. Did a great job with it. Punisher Warzone is awesome. Female director. Did a great job. Didn't need to be a man. It could be a woman, and did a great job with it. So no, I do not think it is inappropriate at all for a man to be creating something about the Me Too movement. I don't think it's inappropriate. However, I will say this. You will have a credibility issue. Writing about something like the Me Too movement, which has affected a lot of people. Even my friend Erin Cummings, who I've had in here, she even told the story on this show about sitting down with the first agent in Hollywood who just basically laid it out for her. Yeah, I can get you opportunities, but you know, you got to put my Mr. Willie in your mouth. You know, that's so dehumanizing and demoralizing, whatever. And it's just something that most men have never experienced. So I don't think it's inappropriate for you to do it. But right or wrong, I do think you're going to suffer a bit of a, I think you're going to suffer a little bit of a credibility issue. Because what do you know about Me Too? What do I know about Me Too? How many times have you been told, I'll only give you an opportunity if you do this in bed with me? I'm sure it has happened. It has happened. But let's not pretend like it's like even 5% of the incidents have happened to men, right? Inappropriate? No. But a credibility issue might be a credibility issue. And so there's got to be a way to navigate that. I'm not sure what it is. I'm certainly not the world's foremost expert at all, but that's kind of how I see it. It's an interesting dilemma, Royce. It's a really interesting dilemma. Der Wunderbar writes, I think it's a combination of the two, John. I'm not quite sure what we're a combination of what to. I'm not sure. Rohit writes, pretty sure the phone got dusted like Star-Lord's gun. Spider-Man's armor and Falcon's wings. It just came back like all those other things. Well, I don't, what are we talking about? Are you talking about that meme? Guys, you got to be more specific. Are you talking about the meme with, how did Hawkeye's wife still have her phone? Well, remember, Winter Soldier, his gun didn't disappear with him. It dropped. So I don't know. And her phone's not connected to you, so I don't know. But then again, we're just talking about a meme, so who cares? Jehan writes, have you seen the Peanut Butter Falcon trailer? I have not. Somebody else asked me that the other day. No, I've never even heard of it, so I still haven't seen the trailer for that. Baby Boy 8603 writes, I am new to the Star Wars saga. I recently watched episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7 for the first time. I'm going to watch episode 8 and Rogue One as well. Episode 9 trailer intrigued me to watch the previous movies. That's awesome. It's not often you come across people, Baby Boy, that are just stepping into a bigger world, that are now just stepping out there and getting their first shot at Star Wars. That's awesome that you're doing it, and you started it the right way. You didn't start with 1, 2, and 3. You started with 4, 5, and 6. That's the way to do it, my friend. I mean, everybody will have a different opinion on that, obviously. But for me, that's the way you do it, buddy, and that's the way you get started. And that's intriguing that it was the Episode 9 trailer that got you intrigued to check out the previous films. I've never heard somebody say that before. So that's really intriguing. Thank you for sharing that. That's fascinating, man. Thank you. All right. Suthius writes, hey, Mr. C, over the weekend here in VA, the overhead PSA highway boards read the following. Woody says, don't drive buzzed. Wonder what it's referencing. That's funny. Okay, that's a nice way to incorporate something into a PSA. That Woody says, don't drive us. I like that. Thanks for sharing that, Suthius. All right. Wunderbar writes, Hulk, smash. Not anymore. Not anymore. That's the Hulk I want, but that's the way they kind of went different. That's cool. It had its advantages. It did. The new Hulk, the way they've done him with Professor Hulk, has its advantages, and there's some really cool things about him. I prefer the other way, but there are advantages to this one, so I got to be fair. Fernando Alvarez Juarez just sends in a super chat. Thank you, Fernando. Ladislav Misanic writes, are Warner Brothers even doing Fantastic Beasts 3? Yes. Yes, they absolutely are. They are 100% on that. There's no doubt about that. They are completely doing it. Epic Berserker writes, John, I saw Toy Story 4 last night, and I have to say, I was highly disappointed. Rex Slinky just stayed in the RV. Buzz was a dummy. My list 3, 1, 2, 4. I think the movie was great. And if those are your reasons why you didn't like it, then you're putting characters before story. And I'm not going to go into details, but it is important to point out, you could probably tell from the trailers, like Slink, Rex, stuff like that, they are secondary characters in this movie. They are background characters. They're becoming more and more that way through the series as it's progressed. But for the story of this movie, and by the way, Buzz was not a dummy. Buzz gave the two most profound, intelligent, wise lines at the end of the film, and I'm not going to talk about what those are because people haven't seen the movie. But in order to tell this story, and remember, story comes first. Characters are there to serve the story, not the other way around. To tell the story they told in Toy Story 4, those other characters who have been background players the whole time really did need to be in the background for this one, to tell the story that they needed to tell. And if you go into this movie thinking, I'm only going to like Toy Story if Rex and Potato Head are major characters, well then yeah, you're going to come out of Toy Story 4 disappointed. I, however, look for them to put the story first, and I thought the story was great. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong that if you didn't appreciate the movie. If you're saying, I just don't think the humor worked, I don't think the emotion was there, I don't think the story worked, if you felt that, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong in the world at all with that. All films are subjective. But if you went in thinking, I'm only going to enjoy this movie if Potato and Slink and stuff like that are major characters in the film, then yeah, you're going to be disappointed with this movie. Because they're not. They're not major players. They have some great moments, but they're not major players. They are definitely background players in this movie. But I would suggest that that's the wrong thing to look for, because then you're not starting with story. But again, maybe you did not like the story or the humor or the heart or the emotion. Maybe that stuff didn't click for you the way it clicked for me. And that's totally cool. All film is subjective. I just would say, don't make the fact that these characters didn't have a lot of screen time as your reason for not liking a movie. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. All right. Fernando Alvarez Juarez, again, sends a super chat, as does Michael Shepis. Just sends them, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate that, man. Dervunderbar writes, lip licking, David Tennant did it when portraying Barty Couch Jr., and Heath did it portraying Joker. Both great to great effect. Yes. Oh, yes, they did. Particularly Heath's. Like, really extravagant, external expressions of personality can be very effective in the right way, and Heath Ledger did it in a great way. Michael Shepis writes, what camera and mic do you use? I use a Rode Procaster microphone, which is very, very similar to the last microphone which I use, which is a Rode Podcaster microphone. But they're essentially the same. One's a USB mic, one's an XLR mic. This is a Procaster microphone. My camera that I use 4 different types of cameras. Over here, I have a Sony XC15 4K camera. Over here, I have my old trusty tried and true. This camera up here, let me see if I can just get it on here. This camera over here is this used to be my main camera. This is my Canon G30 camera, which has been a very reliable camera for me, even in the AMC days. This is a very reliable, great camera for me, and I use it. This one here is which I only got about a month ago, is a Sony A6400. The Sony A6400 is this particular camera here, and I'm in love with it. And it's also another Sony A6400 that I use for Robert Meyer Burnett. So that's also the camera on him. And then I have another camera that if I need to do overhead shots or whatever, which I'll see if I can bring it up right now. Let me see if I can get this. Pretty sure I can. If I want to bring up this one, this is a little overhead cam that I can use to, if I need to show something that's on the desk or table or something like that. I need to get, because this webcam sucks. I need to get a better webcam to have there as a little short overhand cam. But anyway, those are the cameras and the mic that I use to do the show here. Thanks for asking. All right. Massive Jada writes, where does Box Office Mojo get its numbers? They get it from, there's a central system where all movie theaters report their stuff to. Box Office Mojo gets their things from there. If you want more information on that, look up on my YouTube channel, Understanding the Box Office, and there's a video I did that kind of illustrates all of it and who collects all that information. So it's all best explained in that video there. Let's see. Where are we at here? We're at Nat Zegri writes, favorite Hans Zimmer score, mine is Pirates 3. Check out the Pirates, bum, 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 is great. Man of Steel. Yeah, not surprisingly, Man of Steel is my favorite Hans Zimmer score. Toonie Tomb writes, over under 60%. We see Rey again in a movie after episode 9. I hope over, my guess under. I'm going to go over on that. Kathleen Kennedy's already said that you can plan on seeing, Poe and Rey and these characters. We'll see them again. It won't be Star Wars Episode 10. It'll be something different and maybe in a much different context. And it's not 100%. No, it's not 100%, but I would take over 60. That's a low number, so I'll take over 60 on that. Truth Is writes, Black Widow's movie could be about the Red Room and how she became who she is with Winter Soldier and possibly Hawkeye, who was sent to kill her. From what I understand, Truth Is, it takes place after that. It takes place after that. So I believe that's what I heard. It does take place after that, so I don't think it's going to be about that stuff. Dervunderbar writes, I never liked Justice League Flash suit. I did. I thought it worked. It was very different, but you want to bring different incarnations. So for me, it worked. But you're not alone, Dervunderbar. Not everybody did. Let's see. Where are we at here? That was Dervunderbar. All right, here we go. Brandon Plummer writes, before Endgame, I was really hoping for Iron Widow. Yeah, look, honestly, that's the thing about the lamest excuse people come up with to me. Like when I say Spider-Man is cool enough, he doesn't need to be Iron Man Jr. He shouldn't have an Iron Spider suit. It's stupid. But it was in the comics. I don't care if it was in the comics. It's stupid. Spider-Man is cool enough and has enough powers on his own that he doesn't need an Iron Man suit. And people say, but John, what happens if he goes to outer space? How can he breathe if he's in outer space? Okay. Then why didn't Tony make Hawkeye an Iron Hawk suit? If he's so vulnerable? I mean, Hawkeye doesn't have the strength to lift a tank over his head like Spider-Man does. Hawkeye doesn't have superhuman reflexes and superhero speed like Spider-Man does. Hawkeye doesn't have a magical spider sense that warns him when something bad is about to happen. Hawkeye doesn't have that. Hawkeye and Black Widow are way more exposed and way more vulnerable than Spider-Man is, who's got the power of the gods. So don't give me this, well, he had to make Spider-Man an Iron Man suit because otherwise a bullet might kill him. Or what happens if he goes to outer space, John? How is he supposed to? Okay. If you want that to be your excuse, with this being Spider-Man who has the superhuman powers of a god, he can lift a tank over his head, he can, superhuman reflexes, superhuman speed, superhuman agility, magical spider senses, blah, 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 then why didn't he make one for Black Widow? Why didn't he make one for Iron Man, for Hawkeye? He doesn't have superpowers. Why didn't he make one for Nick Fury? Bullet can kill him. He can't breathe in outer space. And he can't lift a tank over his head. So that's what I don't get. It drives me crazy. It's too bad Robert's not. Robert loves the Iron Spider suit. Absolutely loves the Iron Spider suit. And so I love getting into good discussions with him. But yeah, that's the thing. I reject the reasoning, because if that was the reasoning, then how come he didn't make one for these other people who are way more vulnerable than Spider-Man is? Anyway, all that from Iron Widow. All right, Suthius writes, Cameron will also re-release. First of all, Cameron does not have the power to re-release anything. Understand that. James Cameron does not have the power to re-release anything. He is not the film's distributor. He does not have the rights to release the movie. It is not James Cameron's movie to re-release. Understand that. You gotta keep that in mind. People keep saying that. James Cameron doesn't have the ability to do that. He's not the distributor. He doesn't have the rights to do it. All right? Just be clear about that. Cameron will also re-release Titanic with extra footage. Footage in question, Jack and Rose trying and fumbling their way onto the floating door, sped up to the tune of the Benny Hill theme music. He can't do it, but Disney could. If Disney wanted to re-release Titanic, they can do it, but James Cameron can't. He can't re-release Titanic. He can't re-release Avatar. That's a Disney decision to make now. But that would be funny. Come on, make room for him on the damn door. Make room for him on the door. That's some of the greatest music ever, by the way. Adam Douglas writes, I'm not sure excitement alone will push it over. There's a capacity issue. As of last weekend, it's playing in 985 theaters. If they did add more, then maybe. And I do believe they'll probably add more. I think they'll expand the release. I think they'll expand it. I think they'll put it back in a few, like not 4,000 screens like it was on before, but I think they'll do an expansion like they do for limited release films. It's still not a re-release because the movie is still in release. It can expand and contract, but it's still in release. Anyway, but I do expect they'll do a little bit of an expansion. How much? I'm not sure. I'm going to guess it'll probably go up to about 1,400 screens. I'm guessing 1,400 screens. Because I don't know that movie theaters are going to be willing to put on many more than that. Because remember, it's not up to Disney, it's up to the theaters. Disney can want it on more, But if the theaters don't say yes, then there's nothing they can do about it. So we'll see. Curtis Lopez writes, Ann Sarnoff from BBC America is now CEO of Warner Brothers. I have not checked that out. I've not heard that news. Is that breaking? Let me just pull something up here, because that might be breaking news. Because I had not seen that yet. Yep, there it is. It just broke 1 hour ago on Variety. Warner Brothers taps BBC Studio America's chief Ann Sarnoff as CEO. I guess she's replacing Kevin Tsujihara. That's an interesting hire. And that is breaking news. I'll have to read more into it. Thanks for letting me know about that, Curtis. I appreciate that. Massive Jada writes, Billy Zane movie ain't 1/10 as good as the Phantom comic. I'm not going to lie. I've read like a couple of Phantom comics. But by couple, I don't mean like 20 or 30. I mean 1 or 2. So I'm not the right guy to give an opinion on that, Matt. If I'm the wrong guy to give an opinion on that. Suthius writes, while I enjoy your analogies and think they're hilarious, there are some that, well, it makes me worry about you sometimes, Mr. C. My analogies, sir, are brilliant. My analogies defy and just go over your head because you can't comprehend the genius of my analogies. He's absolutely right. They're brilliant. Nobody can match the mind of John Campea. Thank you, Forky. Thank you for settling that issue. My analogies. How dare you, sir? How dare you? Anyway, Der Wunderbar writes, I watch a show via Chromecast, John. I love watching shows on Chromecast. I usually watch my own show on the Roku YouTube app, watch it on the TV. Chromecast is a great way to do it. I just actually installed the Chromecast on one of my TVs as well. I've always been a fan of the Chromecasts. Trevor Johnson writes, hey, John, wanted to say because of you, I quit my job and am going back to my passion of being a chef and being in a kitchen. That's awesome, Trevor. Thanks for inspiring me to not stay somewhere I wasn't happy. Life is too short. Dude, it's absolutely right. Now, look, I don't encourage risk-taking blindly. Do your research. Evaluate. Get thoughts and opinions. Judge where you're at. Now, at the end of the day, there's no guarantees, and you still got to take a risk. But make measured risks. Make informed risks. Know what you're getting into, and do risks that give you at least a chance of success. But when you find those, be willing to take them. Because you get one shot at life. One shot. And one of the reasons why I left the previous place I was is I was simply just got to the point that I wasn't happy. And life is too short. And, I've told this story before, but, it was around that time I was feeling pretty unhappy with where I was. And then my friend died. And it just reminded me, life is too short to be unhappy. Make choices that put you, no choice you make can guarantee happiness, but make choice that give you a chance of being happy and making people around you happy. Life isn't just about you. Make it about the other people in your life as well, but make choices, all other things being equal. Make choices that make you happy. Life is too short. Again, I'm not trying to suggest be completely reckless, but take chances, take risks if it means you might be giving yourself a chance at a better and happier life. And if you're in a job that just makes you unhappy, life's too short, man. Start doing something to see if you can find an alternative. Don't just quit your job without a plan. Nothing like that. I'm not suggesting being foolish, but again, make choices that make you happy. And Trevor, I applaud you, sir, for doing that. That's great. Being a chef and stuff like that. I'm fascinated by people who are really good at cooking, so that's awesome. And there's a world filled with people who want to eat. So being a chef is never a bad thing, man. So good on you, and I hope the absolute best for you in your endeavors, sir. All right. Der Wunderbar writes, don't stand there gawking like you haven't seen the hand of God before. Monty Python, meaning of life. Look, we could sit here all day and just quote Monty Python. No, it isn't. We could just sit here and all day. That's not an argument. That we could sit here all day and come up with great Monty Python quotes. It's amazing. That is certainly a great one. Darklock63 sends in a really generous super chat. Thank you so much for that, Darklock. I appreciate you supporting the channel on that level, man. Darklock writes, not sure where your viewer is getting 18 weeks of Superman. I can only verify 9 weeks, not consecutive, and it was unseated by The Deer Hunter February 25th, 1979, and did not return to #1 later that year. Interesting. See, I couldn't find it either. So, if you do, I would love a link to shows that it was at 18, because I didn't find that either myself. So that's interesting. I mean, still, it's an interesting point that back in the day, you could get a movie that could be #1 in the theater for like 8 weeks. That doesn't happen anymore. That can't happen anymore. It's just too different of a field these days. It's just too different. So it's a huge one, but that's some interesting research there, Darklock. Thank you for pulling that up for me. I got to go find that too. And by the way, please jump over to my email address. This is john@thejohncampeashow.com. john@thejohncampeashow.com. Fire me off any links you've got to that, because I'd be very curious to see that, because I think it's an interesting subject. And thank you for doing that legwork, man. I really appreciate that, as I'm sure everybody here does. Thank you. All right. Just time for 1 or 2 more here, guys. Suthius writes, Joe Coy's impression of Vietnamese had me rolling good. It's hilarious because it's so true. I know some people like that. Sure, stereotypes are sometimes a bad thing, but you can't help but laugh. So what Suthius is talking about is Netflix right now. They just put out the newest Joey Coy comedy special. And it is ripping hilarious. We put it on after we finished our D&D adventure, and before we played poker. We actually put on the first 20 minutes, and we were all just laughing ourselves sick. And one of the things, Joe Coy, who is Filipino, and I'm married into a Filipino family. So his comedy's so good. He's talking about, first of all, he always talks about his Filipino mom, which is completely my mother-in-law. The Filipino mom that Joe Coy talks about is totally my mother-in-law. In all the best ways. But he's like, every Filipino mom's the same. Short hair, glasses, Louis Vuitton purse, and always looking like they're wondering where they are. Where are we? And I'm like, Anne and I are dying, because he's like describing Anne's mom to a T. It was like, and then Joe Coy's like, there's my mom, and there's my mom, and there's my mom, and there's my mom. It's like, all these Filipino, it's great. But what Suthius specifically is talking about is there's this one part, and I won't give away any of the jokes, but he talks about how the only way you can tell us apart, he's talking about being Asian. He said, the only way you can tell us apart is by our accents, if we have an accent. But that's the only way. And then he goes into the different accents and how you can distinguish one Asian person from another by the accents. And it's just, my sides were hurting. I was laughing so hard. It's so good. If you get a chance to check it out, go check out the Joe Coy comedy special that's on Netflix right now, because it's pretty great. All right, guys, that will do it for now. We've gone over 2 hours. Listen, everybody from Abdul Abbas and Sid Vicious and all the way down, do not worry. I'm going to do a companion video this afternoon. I still have some companion video questions left over from Friday. So I'm going to take Friday's and today's and put them together in one companion video today, this afternoon. Keep your eyes open for that. So for everybody who sent in a super chat question after Suthius is there, do not worry. It's getting answered in a video today, including the ones from Friday. So keep your eyes open for that a little bit later this afternoon. All right, guys. That will do it for me for now for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. And hey, guys, listen, tomorrow's kind of fun, because not only is Robert Meyer Burnett back tomorrow, but also my aforementioned friend, the actress Erin Cummings, who is, of course, in The Flash this season, and she's been in movies like The Disaster Artist. She's a star in Spartacus. She's just one of my favorite, most dear people here in Hollywood. So I got both Rob and Erin joining us here for the John Campea Show tomorrow. Make sure you guys come back and join us then. Once again, the companion video is coming a little bit later today. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here for this episode of the John Campea Show. It's always great to have you. My name's John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.